What is up, team? I hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am because, like I always say, it's a great day whenever I get to talk about cancer. Weird expression, but over time, that has been the truth. Whenever I get to express myself about my experiences and or the way cancer has impacted my life and what I hope to get out of it, it helps me a lot. And whenever I get help, it's a great day. Today, I want to tell you a funny story about cancer, which will come on the 7-year anniversary of my first cancer treatment ever. In fact, it is directly about that experience. Cancer isn't always funny, and as someone who finds the humor in most things, I can admit that there are certain stories, including this one, that could be construed as negative, especially as it happens. But when you're looking 7 years in the past as a stage 4 metastatic melanoma patient, you have to start to find, one, the humor in the situation, which I did then, but two, it's hard to size up what it means to be 37 years old and 7 years into an advanced cancer diagnosis. On one hand, it's incredible. I mean, metastatic melanoma had a 5% 5-year survival rate as recently as 2007. So to be here 7 years later, that's a testament to modern science and my response to treatment. On the other hand, being 7 years in with 3 cancer treatments under my belt, it's frustrating and it's sad. But this story in isolation, I happen to love. In fact, a lot of the stories about my early diagnosis, now that I look back on them, it's very fond for me because why not laugh at these things? Why not look at them as positives once I've made them through it? So here we go. My first cancer treatment ever. I had gone through a lot of harrowing diagnostics to figure out what was going on as a then otherwise healthy 30-year-old. I was dating a medical professional, a PA at the time. And so without having a real understanding of what immunotherapy entailed, like we had gotten all the literature on it, we had heard a little bit about the experience, we knew it was going to be kinder than chemotherapy. We headed down to San Luis Obispo Oncology, where I began my treatment. The team that I'm working with would eventually open up a branch of UCLA Oncology here in San Luis Obispo, but at that time, slow oncology. We got down there, day one. I'm terrified. I'm about to start what I know is going to be intensive treatment. And also, I don't really like needles at this point in time. I am so used to them now. I got labs done today on my 7-year anniversary of this funny story involving needles. Didn't bat an eye, but 7 years ago, not a fan of needles. So we get in there, and the first thing that they're going to do before immunotherapy, after checking you in, getting all of your height, weight, etc., they told me what it would look like. It would be about a 90-minute infusion, given my size. It was going to be Opdivo, the immunotherapy I took, and then they said, okay, let's get you set up. We have to run saline through your body first, make sure everything's clean, get you properly hydrated. And they asked which arm I wanted to use for the treatment. I play basketball nearly every day. That hasn't changed. That had been a lifelong thing to begin with. I've always been very conscious about protecting my right arm if I was going to go in and get a shot or something. So I told them, hey, let's use my left arm. I've got gigantic tractor tire veins. You actually can't see them right now. But I said, left arm should be easy. So we set up, and the nurse floats the vein in my left arm. That's actually the only time that a vein has ever been floated. No big deal. I didn't know that was uncommon to begin with, but she did seem surprised. She said, wow, that's a hard vein to float, and we're going to switch to the right arm. Great. So we switch over to my right arm, and she sticks the needle into my vein, and it immediately begins shooting blood back into the syringe. And my girlfriend, who hadn't said anything about her profession, because as a medical professional, I think she didn't want to step on any toes, she said, hey, that's an artery. And the nurse looks at her and goes, that's not an artery. She got a little offended. However, the policy at this clinic, as well as many others, is that if you miss 2 veins as a nurse, you have to rotate and let someone else try it. I think this is just to make sure that you're doing your job correctly. And if you're having an off day or you can't really get the parameters of a patient who's difficult, you have to let someone else try. So she walks away. Another nurse comes over. The syringe is still in my arm. It's still got blood shooting back into it. She looks at it and goes, oh, yeah, that is an artery. And my girlfriend kind of goes, And so she takes that syringe out, leaves the casing in, goes to set up the left arm, hits the initial vein successfully, and then when she turns to go get the saline bag to put it in there, goes, where's the bag? Either the nurse had taken it with her or had never brought it in the first place, the first nurse, that is. And also, I'm not denigrating anyone in this story. I really, really appreciate the work that all nurses and providers do. And these two in particular turned out to be great advocates of mine as time would go on. People just have off days. The nurse's off day just happened to be my first day in cancer treatment ever. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting there like this with 2 needle casings in my arm going, guys, what the fuck is going on? It wasn't like painful to have the casing in my artery, but it wasn't comfortable. And add to the fact that I had no idea what I was in for in general. And I thought that the entire process was going to be a shit show like this. It was pretty unnerving. So ultimately, when I'm talking within a couple minutes, the second nurse came back over with the saline bag. We got the infusion started and my immunotherapy started with a hitch, but the overall session was entirely successful. And I went on to have a very smooth ride in that respect. Now, I believe I've told this story a couple times on this channel before. I was poking around at my prior videos, pun intended, I guess, and couldn't find it, pun intended. But there's a funny follow-up. Pretty recently, I'm talking within the last couple months, I was going to get a needle biopsy done. And this was done at a clinic 40 minutes south of where I typically get treatment, not a provider I go to often. And when we were getting set up, the nurse who was doing the prep work was the second nurse from the story. She has moved on to that clinic since or was rotating there. I don't really know her employment story, but she looked at me and she goes, "You're the guy with the artery over his vein." And I looked at her and I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember you. Great times." We kind of reconnected. We talked about my present situation and or how things have evolved in the years since she had seen me at that clinic. And it was a little heartwarming that one, she remembered me. I guess it's a pretty unique situation. I'm not a nurse, so I can't tell you how often that happens, but I'm sure it was memorable for her too. And also, it just kind of adds to an element of community and support. I know it's like this tiny detail, but over the course of time, I got to know that staff pretty well, and they got to treat me with respect and make sure that I felt like I had a secure future or as good of a chance because of the work that they did. And being able to catch up with her, it was heartwarming. It was nice to say, "Hey, you helped me along. Granted, the circumstances haven't turned out perfectly, but I would like to let you know that you made me feel better." Also, I just mentioned going back and watching some of my prior videos, which is not something I do very often, despite loving the sound of my voice. I promise I'm not that narcissistic. And I noticed a really stark contrast in the way I look during recording. By the way, I've always promised that I was going to try and upgrade my camera and my software and get a new setup. This is it. This is try number one. Granted, I'm sitting 6 feet to the right of where I have recorded in the past. You can still see the piano bench that I historically have sat on. We're just in a different corner of my room at the moment. So we'll see how this goes in the medium term. Anyway, getting back to it, I was watching these videos and I'm in active treatment right now, despite not having active cancer. I'm just finishing out this last 6 months of this treatment, which will hopefully lead to a durable remission. But I noticed the difference in like stress level on my face between when I'm in treatment, when I'm not in treatment. And that includes right now, even though I'm clean and I have a great prognosis and I have very few side effects from this treatment. Man, like cancer treatment leads to so much stress. You can see it in my face, the difference between my videos while in remission and not on active treatment, and then my videos, for example, right now, even when I'm having no other physical side effects. It's just you carry this weight. And I think that looking back, it was fun and sad and weird to kind of look at my face and gauge where I was at those times. But just like this story, I hope that in the future, if I have to go back and peruse my channel and or think more about things that have happened to me in Cancerland, I can laugh at more of them, despite them being stressful times. I was really stressed out during the story I was telling you at the moment. It was the first treatment ever. I've got these needle casings in my arm, and I don't know what immunotherapy is going to be like, and I don't know if the people administering it are even competent. And now looking back on it, it's hilarious to me, and I really, really cherish the work that those people had done, and it has probably contributed to saving my life. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway from today, if there is one, is laugh at yourself, laugh at life, laugh at the circumstance that you're in, even if it is not a great circumstance. I know that that's easy for me to say. I've had some really great outcomes relative to what my diagnosis is, and I've had a lot of great support that allows me to find the levity. There are people who are bombarded with shit from second one of cancer, and it never lets up. That's why cancer is such a scary thing. But I implore you, if you're in treatment or you know someone who's in treatment and you're able to laugh at just the circumstance you're in, or you're able to laugh at something that happens within the shit show that is cancer, take the time to do it, because there's going to be plenty of opportunities to be pouty and be sad and feel terrible about it. And if you can't break it up with levity, I think it's going to drive you even crazier. Not the most profound take in the world, but it's one that has helped me a lot in the last 7 years. Also, if you're a cancer patient or your loved one's going through it, comment below about what you've experienced that has made you laugh. I think it's fun to hear stories like this within the community because, again, we're the only people who can really relate to these stories. You tell this to someone who hasn't experienced cancer in one way or another, and they'll say, okay, that sounds weird. I guess I'm sorry, and or that's funny. But really, once you get into the nitty gritty of being a cancer patient, these stories are much much funnier because this is the environment we're in, for better or worse. That's all I've got today. 7 years since my first cancer treatment. It has been a hell of a ride, and one that I hope to continue with less mishaps like this and less cancer treatment. Shit, I hope I never have to get an IV infusion again. Not going to count my chickens, just going to keep on living life and laughing at it. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.